I thought curriculum, that was the beginning, middle, and end of homeschool. That was all homeschool was focused on. But looking back, this list, these items I'm going to share with you, really led to a great, well rounded education for my children.
Welcome to Little by Little Homeschool Podcast, where you'll learn tips and strategies that will empower you to home educate your children. I'm Leigh Nguyen, a homeschool mom of over 12 years, which includes 2 graduates. When I started homeschooling, I was pretty much on my own and was desperate for encouragement and help. My mission is to be a source of encouragement and help to you. Whether you are just beginning your homeschool journey or you're deep into the homeschool lifestyle, Little by Little Homeschool wants to help you stay the course because all the time you are investing into your children is completely worth it. If you're ready to take your homeschool to new levels, keep listening.
I have a list for you, but it's a good, fun list. And this list is going to go beyond the curriculum and the fancy homeschool gadgets that we all love and maybe have or hope to have, or maybe you got some fun Christmas gifts for the homeschool mom, some gadgets and stuff. But today's list is going to be all about simplifying. Whether you are a minimalist or a maximalist or somewhere in between, let's simplify things and really look at this year in 2025. What are some must haves that you need to have in your homeschool for your family? Any style of homeschool can use this list. Any of them can pull it off, I promise. And as we are talking about 2025 and getting back into homeschool, let's kick off the second half of the homeschool year on the right foot. Reimagine Your Homeschool is a workshop style program, and it is the best time to do this program. And that is why it is only offered right now. I talked more about it in Monday's episode, but really the gist of it is this is going to be the time where we really sit down, you and I, during this workshop, and we talk about your homeschool. Where is it that you're going with it? I know you know these things in the back of your mind, and we're going to draw it out. So, through this workshop, we're going to talk about what I really have found to be the most important parts of your homeschool and what determines the best way of homeschooling for your family so that you can get to the point where you say, yes, we've had a successful homeschool year. And so, this right now is a great time to shift and to pivot and to reset and to reimagine your homeschool. You probably started off the homeschool year with great plans and ideas, and maybe it got a little off track. And especially with the Christmas season, I'm sure things really got off track and you're trying to get back into a routine and getting back into the swing of things. And that is what we're going to do together at Reimagine Your Homeschool. So this program is only available though until January 10th. So make sure you go ahead and get it soon. You can get all the information at littlebylittlehomeschool.com/homeschool reset. The link is also in the show notes for you. Now, let's get on to this list. I personally didn't know the value of these things that I'm going to share with you in just a minute when we first began homeschooling. I thought curriculum, that was the beginning, middle, and end of homeschool. That was all homeschool was focused on. But looking back, this list, these items I'm going to share with you, really led to a great, well rounded education for my children. Okay, so as I look at my list, there are 6 items. Maybe grab a piece of paper so you can scribble these down. Oftentimes I say to myself, oh, I'll remember, and then I don't remember. So get out a piece of paper and a pen and just write these down so that you don't forget when we get to number 6 that you're not like, what was number 1 and number 2 again? All right, number 1, and these are in no particular order. Maybe they would become in order for you as you write them down. You might be like, oh, this actually would be more important. So if you're looking at including these, I highly recommend sitting and evaluating which is going to be most important to start adding to our homeschool first. Oftentimes, we want to like jump in and do everything all at once. I want to encourage you just one at a time. And this is something that you can then work through when you join Reimagine Your Homeschool. And you can put this into the program as well as to what you're going to be resetting and everything. So, number 1 is a home library. Yes, a library card is great and wonderful. And at the very bare minimum, you need a library card so you can take books from the library. Whether you go and you spend time at the library or you just put books on hold and pick them up, having a home library allows children just to meander a little bit more. You might find them over there at the bookshelves, just looking through books. When you go to the library, it's great. I love it. My kids spent a lot of time at the library, and I highly recommended it at that time. It was so good. You need to be a little more careful now of the books and everything. And I started to see that as my kids were getting older, but a home library means that you have curated the books and it allows them just when they are, we'll say, bored at times or they don't know what to do, or they might happen to look over and see the binding of one of the books and say, what's that book about? And go over and pull it down from the shelf and start looking through it. Now, these books that you have in your home library, they can be picture books. You might have some young kids, and maybe even as they get older, they might still enjoy the picture books. They can be short chapter books, they can be long chapter books. There can be books of poetry, and there could be biographies and fiction and all kinds of books, reference books, just things that the kids will look through. Even, reference books are okay. They can look through, and maybe it's a book about birds that are, I know I have on my shelf a book all about North American birds, and we would pull that out. Yeah, it's fine. You can use the internet, you can pull out your phone and look it up, but there's something about pulling the book off the shelf and going through and looking, and then oftentimes, when you do that, so say you see a bird that you've never seen before, and the kids want to know what kind of bird it is. Instead of asking Google, go ahead and pull out the book, find it. And as you're looking through, they might say, hey, wait, I've seen that book, that kind of bird before. And they'll stop you on a page and they might say, oh, wait, what about that one? What is that one? And it will spark a little bit more of their curiosity and interest in maybe looking for birds. And after you show them and you look through, you find the bird that you saw and you read about it, and then you just leave the book out. Most of the times, you'll find a child just kind of sit a little bit longer. They'll linger and look through it. And so having resources that are available for kids when they want to go and use them, and also then not having to rely all the time on the library. Now, it's easier and easier now to have a home library. I remember growing up, we didn't have a lot of books. We didn't grow up with a lot of money, so it was difficult to be able to add more books to it because you would probably need to purchase them new. I remember getting older and we would get maybe one book from the Scholastic Fair, and then as I had children and my kids were in school, they started off in preschool, and then they started off in school and there was the Scholastic Fair. I remember specifically in preschool getting like the little flyers sent home. Maybe it was every month, and I would always purchase the dollar book. I knew I at least had a dollar and I would purchase, maybe if there was a couple of cheaper books, purchase a couple of those cheaper books. But I found some other places that are really great for finding books. Books don't have to be new. Now, granted, we don't want them used and all torn up and written on and pages missing. You can find some great quality used books as well. So you can look for book sales, typically maybe at the library. They'll have those maybe once a year. I feel like it's probably once a year that every library will have a book sale. However, I have noticed that at least maybe a couple of libraries in my area that I have gone a couple years in a row, and I'm like, these are literally the same books. You guys just pack them up and then store them somewhere and then pull them back out. So know that some library sales are going to be better than other library sales, but look for anywhere that has book sales. Online, you can find books. I have enjoyed finding books from thriftbooks.com. I remember when I first started buying used books online was Amazon. Do you remember that that's basically what they started out selling was books? And I was so excited to be able to find used books. Now, granted, it would take like 2 or 3 weeks to get in, but still, I was just excited to have those books. But there's a lot of different options, and you can maybe purchase them from friends who are maybe reducing their library, but just look for where you can find books and add to your own home library. Number 2 must have is free time. You're like, what? Free time? Yes. Give your children free time. Let them get bored as long as the boredom doesn't lead to destruction or negative behavior, then the boredom is okay. Boredom is often a time where kids, their brains, they feel like they're bored. They feel like they need to be stimulated and they'll find something to do. Again, as long as it doesn't interfere as far as being destructive or negative or anything like that that would go against your family or add any more chaos to your day. just giving them time to just play, to be creative, to try things, to build forts, and to play games, and to play with their toys. And just, I mean, there's just endless possibilities. But don't fill up their days so much. We can very easily do that with, there's so many activities. Everybody's like, oh, how will your kids be socialized? And you're like, I actually have to cut down on the socialization so we can have some time at home to be free. I think that this is lost a lot in childhood. And I don't see it all the time when it comes to homeschoolers because we are always going to have some amount of free time. But I see it more so with kids that are in school and they get up early and get to school and they're in school all day long. They might come home for a little bit, but then it's off to activities. And if there's multiple children in the family and each of them are involved in different activities or different sports, now I'm not knocking the activities or the sports, there definitely is a place for it. But when a child's day is so full and so scheduled, they don't have that time to just pursue what they're interested in. And I personally think kids need a lot of free time. If you listen to Monday's episode, that afternoon time block that I talked about, my kids had a lot of free time, and I have no regrets about that. Number 3 item to have is arts and craft supplies, and make these open ended. It is fine to buy those kits, those are cute and fun once in a while, but just have supplies on hand. Paper they can draw on, crayons and pencils and pens and markers. And you don't have to do the glitter if you don't want to do the glitter. Things like popsicle sticks and tape and glue and pom poms and feathers and what are those? The pipe things that are like fuzzy. I forget what they're called. But just go down the aisle at, say, Michael's or any craft store and just purchase craft supplies, googly eyes, and just all the things. And then just give your children that time, that space. Maybe it's carved out into your homeschool because you might say, I don't give my kids time to just be free with the art and craft supplies. And maybe you say, you know what, every Thursday afternoon, or you don't have to be that scheduled about it, but maybe that works for you. Maybe that's what you need to do is let your kids know, hey, on this certain afternoon, or maybe you have co-op on Wednesday. And so you say Wednesday afternoon is arts and craft time, and you just have a designated area. We had a designated arts and craft area for my kids for many, many, many years. James even built some desks for them that were just like little tables, and I didn't care. I put a clear coating on it. So basically, like anything that they would do, I could easily wipe off. And I didn't care if there was glue that was so stuck to it that I couldn't get it off. I didn't care about the markers on it because it wasn't anything. I mean, that's what it was for. That was the purpose of it. And so we had an art center and my kids just loved it. And just letting them have that open ended to be able to create whatever they want will really spark their imagination. Number 4 is giving them access to safe building supplies and tools. If you are working on a DIY project or dad is working on a DIY project, have them join in, have them learn how to use these different tools and the different building supplies, whether it is changing out the toilet or putting an addition onto your home or somewhere, something in between, letting them do it alongside and then giving them some access. So you might start off with just giving them access to like a small hammer or something like that. And maybe then it is some screwdrivers. And then it just kind of builds on it. And my kids have done so much with my husband. Just a couple of weeks ago, I was working on something and I heard James has a whole, I mean, all his tools and everything is set up down in our basement and things are just set up. You can just basically turn on the circular saw and start cutting some wood for a project. You don't have to get things out and everything. And all of a sudden, I heard that going and I knew that James was working. I could hear him in his office working. So I knew it wasn't him. And I quick ran downstairs and just wanted to make sure. And it was my youngest. He was 16 and he was using the circular saw. And I was like, oh, want to respect that he knows what he's doing and not be overshadowing and always like, you don't want to be like a helicopter mom. And it stopped for a moment and I yelled down, "Hey, are we practicing safety?" And he was like, he couldn't hear me. So I yelled it louder. I was like, I think he is practicing safety because he can't hear me. And I yelled even louder. He's like, huh? Are you yelling? And I said, yeah. I was like, I guess you have ears on. So I just always say them eyes and ears, which means you have safety goggles and you have ear protection. He's like, yeah, yeah. And I said, and we're keeping our fingers away? He's like, yes. And he was fine. And so I've caught them, not caught them, but I have found them a couple of times because it's very easy to hear such a thing that they are working with some types of tools because they have had access when they were younger to safe things and being able to know how to use those. And that was one of my goals, actually. I could probably do a whole episode about how we kind of introduced this all to our kids and how, especially, wanted our boys to be able to be handy around the house so that someday when they have their own home, they don't have to be, yeah, there's always going to be the Googling and the YouTubing of things when there's odd things, but they felt confident to be able to do a lot of things and they have. So, giving your kids access to safe building supplies and tools and let them build some things. It does I mean, how much damage can you do with a little bit of wood and some nails and a hammer? It's not a circular saw. You can work up to that. Number 5 is the must have is the outdoors. Spend time outside. Whether you wanna join the 1,000 hours outside movement or not, or just kind of you're like, "I don't really wanna keep track of that. I just wanna spend time outside. I want my kids outside." There is so much good that can happen outside. We can reset our mind in the middle of a bad day. Our kids' imagination can just kinda run wild, and again, just letting them be open with their playing instead of having to direct all of their playing. Let them lead it themselves with each other. If you have kids, you have multiple children, let them figure out games and play things and just what they want outside instead of you or anybody else directing. Yeah, there's times for games, there's times for sports and that kind of stuff, but just giving them also an option to just play. We kind of had a rule in our house. There's one home that we lived in for probably the bulk of my children's, like, younger childhood that they remember, and the rule was if a toy went outside, it didn't come back in because I can guarantee you that toy was buried somewhere in the backyard, dug back up, and was covered in who knows what, and yeah, it wasn't gonna be a good thing. I was just trying to reduce the amount of dirt maybe in the house, the amount of cleaning, I don't know. But it was just a rule, like, if you bring the toy outside, then it's an outside toy, and so my kids had a lot of just random toys and a lot of, like, being able to build stuff and all kinds of stuff. Some broken down, probably bikes that they would fix up, and who knows what we'd find on the side of the road, and they had one of those big wheels, and my daughter we had found it, like, literally in somebody's trash, and it was fine. And so it was pink and purple, and then when she kind of outgrew it and the boys wanted to ride it, we spray painted it because we didn't find any more in anybody's trash can and didn't have the budget to buy a brand new one, and so we spray painted it blue, and as time went by, the blue paint was, like, falling off and yeah, it looked ratty, but it was kind of funny, but just giving them time outdoors just to also just play, just that free time, combine that free time with the outdoors, but also take them out into nature. Maybe you don't live in, an area, maybe your home isn't on set on the middle of 100 acres or anything like that, and you just have maybe a little quarter acre and let them just play, but then go out to the woods, take them hiking and go out and do stuff and have fun. Number 6, the very last one on my must-have is that spending time with other families that you really love and enjoy. Just the making of the memories for kids. My kids have there was a couple of families that we were just really close to, and they still talk about those families. We had since moved away from them, unfortunately, but, I mean, it all turned out okay. But it was hard. It was hard to leave, but there was just so many memories that we made, and so take the time to set up the play dates. Take the time to have them over for dinner or invite them to come on over after church on a Sunday and invite them to meet you somewhere, get a pool membership at the same place, whatever it's gonna be. Don't neglect the getting together with other families that are going to encourage you, that are raising their children in a similar manner, so that your kids can say, "Oh, it's not just mom and dad that are kinda like this," especially as they get older, it's also these other families, and so really don't neglect the time that you can spend with others and cultivating those relationships because it's good for you and it's also good for your children. As you're listening to this, you're saying, I don't know how I'm going to fit this in, Leigh, because I've already have a lot of things that I'm trying to fit in. Reimagine Your Homeschool is going to help you stop the struggles that you were in before the Christmas break. It's also going to show you how we can fit these types of things in as well. And it's going to give you new life and a fresh perspective for your homeschool as you now steer into this second half of the homeschool year. I want to encourage you to go over and get all the information, check it out, and hopefully join me for that workshop and reimagine, reset, refresh your homeschool for the rest of this homeschool year. You can get that information at littlebylittlehomeschool.com/homeschool reset or check out the link in the show notes. I look forward to seeing you over there, and I'd love to also hear about how you incorporate these 6 must-haves into your homeschool this year.
Thank you for listening, friend. I'd love to connect with you more. You can find social media links in the show notes and share this episode with a friend who could use a boost to her homeschool. See you back here real soon.